Long ago as a schoolboy, I can remember hearing students say, "Liar, liar, pants on fire." Did you ever hear that? What was behind it? Come on, let me tell you what I think. Imagination is a wonderful thing, isn't it? That lovely world of make-believe and wondering what might be. But although what might be is perhaps possible, it isn't real right now. Pretending doesn't make it so. I suppose the model railway is something that has come from my imagination, but that was a lot of work. I couldn't just speak it into existence. As a child, when disagreements broke out in the school playground, we would quickly escalate things. Sometimes that would degenerate into a full-on scrap, and the consequences of that were never good at all. Now, more often, we would just get into a shouting match where the conversation would go something like this. "My brother will come and get you." And then, "My brother is bigger than your brother." "Well, my dad is bigger than your dad." "Well, my dad is stronger than your dad." "Oh, my dad is so strong, he can pick you up with one hand." And while my dad is picking you up, my dad will pick up our car with me in it. Then the next thing you would hear is, "Liar, liar, pants on fire." Years after I left school and went to work, I met one of my old classmates who asked with a grin if my dad could still lift a car. Now, of course, my dad couldn't lift a car. Couldn't lift our car. We didn't have one. These childhood claims were just exaggerations and schoolboy antics, right? But were they? Were we setting the stage for life and our futures? Were we undermining the ability for others to trust us and trust what we said to be true? Well, actually, of course. Now, as someone who's taken a keen interest in science and technology, I often hear nonsense being presented as fact by people who should know better. Facts don't seem to matter, and truth appears to be whatever someone decides it should be that day. In a way, I suppose it's a little like me saying, "My dad is bigger than your dad," and I'm hoping no one will ever call me out on it and actually check to see how big my dad really is. The trouble with these made-up stories and made-up ideas, "My dad can lift our car," for example, is that in the end, if I say these things often enough, not only will someone, one of my friends, start believing them, but so do I. Recently, someone asked me what it was like being an underground train driver. Somewhere along the line, someone picked up that I was a train driver and loved to make models of the trains I drove. Now, I suppose that could be true. I might have been a train driver and might have driven underground trains. And somehow, now I work for an airline. The idea, once out there, is very hard to undo. Now, I've never told anyone I drove an underground train. I'd like to, but I don't think it'll ever happen. But no, for the record, I was never a train driver. Now, I did drive buses and trucks for a while, but never trains. Untruths and clever stories and lies mixed up with ideas and rumors have a way of growing roots and expanding into every nook and cranny of life. It really is possible to end up believing your own lie. Or perhaps I was a train driver. No matter how many facts or truths you present, well, at least to some people, even if the science is overwhelming, they still choose to believe their thing. Now, there's a number of reasons for this reluctance to accept truth and continue to believe something that is simply untrue. First, it's convenient. The untruth, whatever it might be, fits in with someone's life practices, beliefs, culture, or habits. Of course it's true. Accepting something that is not true as truth can also be essential to maintain a position on something. Well, if that isn't true, then, Sometimes the consequences of accepting truth has implications to things that are propped up by lies. Now, I recently met someone who believes the world is flat and not round. To my surprise, that's a thing these days. There are all sorts of pseudo-facts and half-truths that were presented to support the nonsense. And although it is relatively easy for someone with basic schoolboy maths as a hobby to show this isn't a reality, my flat earth friend remains convinced it's me that has swallowed a lie. When a belief comes along that isn't true, the believers will find every fact they can to back up the untruth and reject anything that doesn't support their argument. Far from having an open mind, I've found that lies have a nasty tendency to close minds and only accept facts that support that particular point of view. John, the friend of Jesus, quotes the prophet Isaiah on exactly this, so it's not a new problem. A big crowd were following Jesus around. Many in the crowd had seen Jesus call Lazarus from the tomb, raising him from the dead, and were telling others about it. Now, can you imagine that discussion? But I saw it with my own eyes. Nah, it can't be. People don't just come back to life. Well, this one did. Not only were the facts presented hard to accept, the problem was, very obvious. If what their friends were telling them was true, it demanded beliefs about who'd done that, Jesus, to change. And that would have huge consequences. That was the reason so many went out to meet him, because they had heard about this miraculous sign. But despite all the miraculous signs Jesus had done, most of the people still did not believe in him. And here's where John quotes Isaiah. This is exactly what Isaiah the prophet had predicted. Lord, who has believed our message? To whom has the Lord revealed his powerful arm? But the people couldn't believe, for Isaiah also said, the Lord has blinded their eyes and hardened their hearts, so that their eyes cannot see and their hearts cannot understand. Now that's all very interesting and all that. I'm sure we could have a long discussion about truth and facts and why people can't see things the way they really are. But there's another side to this too. Many people did believe in him, however, including some of the Jewish leaders, but they wouldn't admit it for fear that the Pharisees would expel them from the synagogue, for they loved human praise. There seems to be one set of facts, and yet several groups of people interpreting the same facts in a variety of ways. The first group had seen what Jesus did and believed. The second? Well, they were unconvinced. That's impossible. And despite having the facts presented, they still couldn't accept the truth for one reason or another. The last group, they were different. They knew the truth, and because they liked the way things were, they recognized life would have to change if those things were true. They chose not to admit they believed the facts were true. The story of Lazarus and Jesus seems extreme for sure. What about you? Are you someone who really is open to facts and truth, or someone who just can't? Perhaps you know the facts you hold on to don't add up. and you are caught up in something, but you just can't handle the reality of life and all that would have to change if you do the right thing, and if you were to act on what you know to be true. When the facts are clear, but you just don't want to change, do you see the similarity between my dad being able to pick up a car we didn't have, and some of these hard things that we have to decide on every day in life? When presented with facts that go against what you'd like to believe, how do you react? Until next time, goodbye.